My own mother teamed up with my boyfriend and my best friend to plot against me. The night before my senior trip, I heard my mother say, just make sure she falls. Nothing too serious. A hairline fracture is enough for her to miss Monday. The knife in her hand tapped the cutting board soft. And even I had come out of my room for water. I stopped in the hallway outside the kitchen, one hand around the glass, and listened to my best friend answer her Aunt Rachel. I checked the trail. The North Overlook has no working camera, and there are barely any hikers before noon. I'll hold Emma's arm, pretend I slip and pull her down with me. It won't look deliberate. My fingers went numb. North Overlook. That was supposed to be day 2 of our graduation trip to Colorado. Then my boyfriend, Ryan, spoke. His voice was low, almost hesitant. Do we really have to hurt her if Emma finds out? My best friend Chloe cut him off with a wounded little laugh. Now you feel sorry for her. What about me? I've been with you all this time with no name. No place. I helped you hide this from her. Does that mean nothing? The kitchen went quiet. Then Ryan sighed. I'm not feeling sorry for her. I just don't want it to get big. Chloe said. It won't. Emma trusts you. She trusts her mom. She trusts me most of all. She won't suspect a thing. My mother did not correct her. She only lowered her voice. We do it tomorrow. Emma is too stubborn. She thinks moving across the country for that job makes her independent. What does a girl need with a product career that intense? She should stay in Portland. Chloe needs the opening more. The glass in my hand was cold. Hearthline Labs. I had spent a year preparing for that job. 4 interviews, a product case, a final panel. 3 nights without sleep polishing a trust and safety prototype. The company had 1 associate product manager slot. I ranked first. Chloe was the alternate. Monday was my medical clearance and final signature. If I missed it, they could move down the list. So that was it. My mother, my best friend and my boyfriend had planned a fall for me. Because my future was inconvenient. I remembered being 7 with a fever. My mother carrying me through rain and telling me not to be afraid. I remembered her packing lunch before my acid and saying, my girl can go anywhere. I remembered Chloe moving into our apartment after her parents died. Sleeping in my bed, borrowing my clothes. Crying into my shoulder. You have so much. Mom always said. Let Chloe have this one thing. I had let her have so many things. Apparently they had decided my life was one more. Chloe asked and the tickets bought. Mom said 4 seats. Emma has wanted this trip for months, she'll board. Ryan asked if she misses Monday. Hearthline really takes Chloe. The recruiter said, I'm next. Chloe answered quickly, I know Emma's whole project anyway. She shared everything with me. I can present her logic if I have to. That almost made me laugh. My research, my model. My user interviews. My sleepless nights had become something she could just present. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Ryan, babe. Don't oversleep tomorrow. I'll pick you and your mom up at 6 in the kitchen. Ryan said, I'll drive behind you on the mountain road. If something happens, we can handle it. Chloe laughed. You are the best. I stared at the word babe until it blurred. I did not answer. I returned to my room. Closed the door and slid down against it. Tears did not come. Maybe when pain is deep enough. It waits. I opened my laptop and read the offer email again. Dear Emma Walsh, congratulations. Emma Walsh. Not someone's daughter. Not someone's girlfriend, not someone's generous best friend, me. I picked up my phone and texted my roommate, Maya. Are you free tomorrow? I need help. She answered immediately. Catching a cheater. Throwing hands or running away. I support all 3. I smiled for the first time that night. Maybe all 3. The next morning. I acted normal. Mom had made pancakes. Chloe sat at the table in a yellow sundress. Her hair braided loosely, looking sweet enough to sell greeting cards. Ryan arrived. With 2 coffees. 1 hot for me, 1 iced for Chloe. He brushed my hair back like he still had the right. Happy graduation trip, Em. I looked at him and thought of all the times I had loved him honestly. When he carried my speakers during freshman move-in. When he brought soup during finals. When he waited outside my dorm after a professor made me cry. Love does not make betrayal less sterile. Makes it smell worse. At the airport. Maya waited outside departures in an oversized hoodie. She held a Nintendo Switch and a lollipop. Chloe stiffened when she saw her. Maya came to see me off, I said. Maya slung an arm around my shoulders. What? No hug for the emotional support. Roommate Ryan smiled. Any friend of Emma's is ours. Maya looked him up and down. Depends. Some friends are friends. Some are side quest villains. Chloe's smile faltered. What does that mean? Maya held up her switch. My game. Why did you feel targeted? I almost laughed. Mom frowned. Emma, go check in before you miss boarding. I nodded and walked toward security with my suitcase. Chloe immediately linked her arm through mine. You're quiet today, she said. Excited. Didn't sleep. Sleep on the plane. Sure. We moved slowly, exactly the way they wanted. One uncheerful lie. Then I stopped and touched my backpack. I left my license pouch in the car. Ryan frowned. I'll get it. You don't know where I put it. I'll be right back. Mom's voice sharpened. Emma. I smiled. I'm 22. I can retrieve a pouch without getting lost. Maya lifted her hand. I'll go with her. I promise not to kidnap anyone. Chloe opened her mouth then closed it. Ryan watched me with a look I did not like. Hurry. Wait for me, I said. I walked away with Maya 10 steps. 20 around the corner. Then we kept walking. Where now? Maya whispered. Union Station. Her grin spread. Leaving them with the plane while you take the train to freedom. Emma Walsh, character development. I laughed then almost cried. On the light rail toward downtown. Maya scrolled her phone and said. Life is short. Ubisoft's co-founder. Claude Guillermo just died in a plane crash in France. And he helped build half the games I grew up on. People think they have time. Then they don't. Don't spend yours trapped in a rotten side quest. I looked out at the morning sky. They had booked me a flight toward a fall. I bought myself a train toward my life. Ryan called 3 times before the train left Portland. I did not answer. Chloe texted. First with worry, then anger. Where are you? We are boarding. Aunt Rachel is crying. Stop being dramatic. My mother's last message was short. If you do not come back now. Do not call me your mother. That one hurt. Maya saw my face and said. Still going. Still going. Heartline Labs was in San Francisco. My official start was Monday. But at 2 in the morning, I had emailed HR. Explaining that I could arrive early for optional onboarding. At breakfast, they replied. We are glad to have you come by when you land. That sentence became my life raft. The station, I turned my phone on again. 27 missed calls from Ryan. Messages from Chloe saying I ruined the trip. Messages from Mom saying I had humiliated her. Ryan called again. This time I picked up. Emma. Where the hell are you? San Francisco silence. What? Why? My job. Are you insane? Your mother is sick over this. We are all in Colorado because of you. I watched commuters pour around me. Ryan, do you want me on that trip? Or did you want me on the ground with a fractured ankle? The line went quiet. There was my answer. Emma, what are you talking about? The North Overlook. No camera. Chloe pulls me down. You follow behind to manage the accident. Mom tells everyone it was a hiking fall. Then Chloe takes my job. Did I miss anything? He breathed hard. You heard wrong. I heard enough. I wasn't going to let it get that bad. How generous. Emma. I love you. You love the girl. Who would have believed you? My voice surprised me by staying steady. She is gone. I hung up and blocked him. No one met me outside the station. I did not know. The city I had one suitcase. One job offer and a chest full of broken glass. For the first time in days. I felt free. Heartline Labs moved fast. On my first pre-onboarding day. Our manager gave us a mock product case. Improved trust in a campus resale platform. It was almost exactly the project I had built for my final interview. And Chloe had a copy of my materials. The next morning, HR asked. Do you know Chloe Bennett? Yes. He contacted us saying. You had withdrawn and submitted a supplementary deck. Some of it resembles your interview work. I smiled fast. They were fast. I opened my laptop and showed the original files. Timestamps, cloud history. Professor emails, survey data. My drafts and version notes. Chloe had changed the title and slide order. She had not even corrected the sample ID I had mistyped in version 3. This work is mine, I said. I can cooperate with legal if needed. The HR director's expression changed. Return to training. We will handle it. That afternoon, Chloe called. I answered because I had been waiting. She cried first. Emma. Why are you doing this to me? What did I do? You know how much I needed that job. You already have everything. Why couldn't you let me have one chance? I laughed once. Chloe. How much have I let you have? My room, my clothes. My notes, my mother's sympathy. Half my boyfriend, now my offer too. Her crying stopped. You don't know how hard my life has been. I do. Hardship does not make my life yours. Her voice sharpened. You think you won? Your mom won't forgive you. Ryan won't forget me. You're alone in San Francisco. How long can you last? I looked down at the city traffic. Let's find out. After she hung up, an unknown number sent me a photo of my mother, crying at the Denver airport. Your mother is like this because of you. Do you have no conscience? The screen of my phone did not warm up, no matter how long I stared at the photo of my mother crying at the Denver airport. In the picture, her hands were pressed to her face, her shoulders hunched under the familiar beige cardigan she wore whenever she traveled. She looked fragile, aged, and thoroughly defeated. The text accompanying it from the unknown number, likely Chloe's Aunt Rachel, reminded me of my alleged crimes. Your mother is like this because of you. Do you have no conscience? I looked at the text for a long, quiet minute. The old Emma, the one who had spent 22 years carrying the invisible ledger of her family's debts, would have felt a familiar, sickening pull in her chest. She would have believed that her mother's tears were a bill she was obligated to pay. But the glass in my hand was no longer a cup of water from the Portland kitchen. It was a cheap, branded mug from my temporary corporate apartment in San Francisco's Soma district, filled with black coffee that tasted faintly of paper, filters and transition. I tapped the contact card, selected block, and deleted the thread. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was a clean silence. For the first time in my life, there were no voices telling me how much I had, how much I owed, or how much I needed to give away to keep the peace. Outside my window, the San Francisco morning was gray and thick with marine layer. The city didn't feel like a postcard, it felt like a machine made of concrete, steel, and people who had somewhere to go. I liked it. It didn't care about my childhood, and it certainly didn't care about Chloe Bennett's tears. At 8:30 a.m., I walked into the lobby of Hairline Labs. The building was a converted brick warehouse with towering glass panels that looked out over the bay. The lobby smelled of eucalyptus, floor wax, and expensive espresso. I stood in line at the security desk, my heart doing a quiet, steady double tap against my ribs. Emma Walsh, the receptionist asked, looking up from her screen. Yes. Here for pre-onboarding with trust and safety. She smiled, a professional, efficient expression that felt like a shield, and handed me a temporary badge. 3rd floor. Marcus is expecting you. Marcus Vance was the director of product for Hearthline's core trust systems. He was a tall man in his late 30s with sharp, observant eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a habit of speaking in short, declarative sentences. When I entered the conference room, he was already drawing a massive database architecture diagram on the whiteboard. Emma, he said, not looking up from his marker. You're early. I like early. It means you haven't learned how to procrastinate on Slack yet. I wanted to get a head start on the local environment setup, I said, setting my laptop on the long oak table. Marcus stopped, capped his marker with a loud click, and turned to look at me. Your case study on peer-to-peer transaction verification loops, the one you presented in the final round. Where did you get the dataset for the simulated seller fraud? I scraped public transaction ledgers from 3 different localized classified sites over a 6-month period, I replied, my voice steady. Then I cleaned the data using a basic Python script to flag accounts that listed high-value electronics with less than 24 hours of account history. Marcus nodded slowly. And the feature logic? The one about the multi-tiered escrow delay? That was mine. I designed the state machine on a legal pad in my dorm room over spring break. Marcus walked over to the table and leaned against it, crossing his arms. Good. Because yesterday morning, our general HR alias received an email from a Chloe Bennett. She claimed she was the primary author of that logic and that you had used her academic materials to secure the offer. My hand stayed flat on the table. I know. She sent over a PDF deck, Marcus continued, his tone entirely neutral, the voice of a man who dealt with system anomalies for a living. It looked almost identical to yours. Same color palette, same layout. But there was a discrepancy. The sample ID in the 3rd phase database schema, I said. On slide 14. Marcus's eyebrows twitch upwards. Go on. I made a typo in the sample user database row, I said, looking him straight in the eye. I wrote user_ID_7739_ERR instead of user_ID_7739_AR. It was a late-night copy-paste error from my raw CSV output. I didn't notice it until after I submitted my final panel slides. If Chloe copied my local files, she wouldn't have realized it was an error. She would have assumed it was functional code. Marcus stared at me for 3 seconds. Then, a small, dry smile appeared on his face. She didn't change it. In fact, her supplementary deck listed user_ID_7739_ERR as a core validation key in her own architectural explanation. He stood up, walking back to the whiteboard. HR is handling the formal rejection and the blacklisting of her profile. Legal has already flagged her name across our talent acquisition partners. But I wanted to hear it from you. In this department, Emma, we build the walls that keep the bad actors out. If you can't protect your own intellectual property, you can't protect our users. I protected it, I said. I left the trail. Yes, you did, Marcus said, picking up his marker again. Sit down. Let's talk about our actual production pipeline. We have a leak in our merchant onboarding flow, and I want you to look at the telemetry. For the next 4 hours, the world outside Hearthline ceased to exist. There was only data, the logic of systems, and the clean, cold reality of solving problems. That had clear, logical solutions. There were no emotional debts here. There were only inputs and outputs. By Wednesday, my life had settled into a temporary, fragile rhythm. I spent my days at Hearthline, burying myself in the telemetry logs Marcus had assigned me. I rented a small, furnished studio in the Mission, a room that smelled of old wood and fresh paint, with a single window that looked out onto a fire escape. It was small, but it was mine. No one else's clothes were in the closet. No one else's preferences dictated the temperature. At night, my phone would buzz with the vibrations of a ghost town trying to pull me back into its ruins. Ryan tried first. Since I had blocked his number, he sent an email to my personal address. Subject, Emma, please just read this. Asterisk Emma, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But you have to understand the position we were in. Chloe was losing her mind. Ever since her dad died, she's felt like she has nothing. Your mom was constantly telling her that she deserved a break, that you had so much natural talent that you'd find another job in a heartbeat. The trail thing, it wasn't my idea. I swear to you, I was trying to talk them down. I didn't want you to get hurt. I was going to make sure the fall was light, just enough to scratch your knee or something so you'd have to stay back. I thought if you stayed, we could all go to Colorado together and we could figure out a way to get Chloe the job without you hating her. I love you, Emma. I've loved you since freshman year. You can't just throw away 4 years over a mistake. Please call me. Let me fly to SF. Let's talk about this asterisk. I read the email twice. The prose was classic Ryan, soft, defensive, shifting the blame to the women in his life while pretending to be the reluctant protector. He had been trying to talk them down, yet he was the one who had volunteered to drive behind us on the mountain road to handle it if something went wrong. He didn't love me. He loved the ease of me. He loved that I was the girl who didn't ask questions when he came home late, the girl who did his group project slides, the girl who made him feel stable while he slept with my best friend behind my back. I forwarded the email to my personal archive folder, documentation, just in case, and did not reply. An hour later, my phone rang. It was an unknown local Portland number. I hesitated, then answered. Emma? It was my mother's voice, but it lacked the sharp, demanding edge she usually used when she wanted something. She sounded older, her voice thin and raspy, the way she sounded when she had one of her migraines. Yes, I said. Emma, thank God. Why aren't you answering your phone? Do you have any idea what you've done? I've gone to work, Mom, I said, my voice flat. Your university's academic standards board called the apartment yesterday, she said, her voice rising, the familiar heat of her anger returning. They're investigating Chloe's senior capstone project. They say Hearthline's legal department filed a formal complaint for plagiarism and credentials fraud. They're talking about withholding her degree, Emma. Her degree. She tried to steal my employment offer using my own work, I said. Hearthline has policies about that. She's your sister in everything but blood, my mother cried. Her parents are dead, Emma. She has no one. You have always been the smart one, the strong one. You can find another job. You have a future. Why do you have to ruin hers? Why do you have to be so selfish? The word hung in the air between us, cold and sharp. Selfish. For years, that word had been the leash my mother used to keep me in line. If I didn't want to share my bedroom with Chloe, I was selfish. If I didn't want Chloe to wear my grandmother's silver locket to prom, I was selfish. If I wanted to study for my finals instead of helping Chloe rewrite her remedial English papers, I was selfish. She tried to break my leg, Mom, I said softly. The line went quiet. I could hear the faint sound of traffic from the Portland street outside her window. It was just a little fall, my mother muttered, her voice dropping into a defensive whine. A sprain. Just enough to keep you from traveling for 2 days. We would have taken care of you. I would have made your favorite soup. We just needed you to miss the signature on Monday so Chloe could have her turn. You've always had everything go your way, Emma. Chloe needed this. You wanted to break my bones so your favorite could have my life, I said. The realization didn't hurt anymore, it was just a physical fact, like the temperature of the room. And you think I'm the one who ruined things? If you don't call that company and tell them it was a misunderstanding, my mother said, her voice hardening into a threat, don't you ever think about coming back here? I will pack up your things and throw them in the street. You won't have a mother, Emma. You'll be entirely on your own. I'm already on my own, Mom, I said. I have been for a very long time. I hung up. My hands were shaking slightly, but my chest felt light. The invisible cord that had kept me tied to that house, to that kitchen, to that expectation of endless sacrifice, had finally snapped. I picked up my laptop and went back to work. She did what? Maya's voice boomed through my laptop speakers. We were on a FaceTime call late Thursday night. Maya was sitting in our old dorm room, surrounded by half-packed cardboard boxes, her Nintendo Switch resting on her knees. She tried to submit my typo, I said, showing Maya the screen split of the database architecture. Maya let out a loud, barking laugh. Oh my God. That is poetry. That is actual high-grade comedic justice. The bitch copied the error. She literally Control-C'd her own funeral. It's getting worse for her, I said. Hearthline's legal team doesn't play around. When they flag a candidate for fraud, they notify the university's Career Services Department. Because our university was a partner school for the APM pipeline, the Dean of Engineering got involved. Maya leaned forward, her eyes wide. Wait. Does this mean they're checking her other work? I don't know, I said. But they might. Oh, they absolutely are, Maya said, a predatory grin spreading across her face. And guess what? I did some digital archaeology of my own today. Remember when we had that shared Google Drive folder for our junior year software design class? The one Chloe borrowed access to because she lost her laptop. Yes, I said, a cold feeling starting to settle in my stomach. I checked the version history on the master repo, Maya said, tapping her screen. Chloe didn't just borrow your notes, Em. She pulled your raw code blocks for her database final. She didn't even change the variable names. I have the commit logs from 2 years ago. If the dean's office wants to look at her academic history, I have a whole zip file of receipts ready to go. Maya. I hesitated. Is that too much? Too much. Maya's voice dropped its humor, becoming suddenly serious. Emma. She planned to have you physically assaulted on a mountain trail. She wanted to fracture your bones so she could steal your career. If you had gone on that trip, you'd be sitting in a hospital in Denver right now with a cast on your leg, watching her post LinkedIn updates from San Francisco. There is no such thing as too much when it comes to self-defense. I looked at my hands. They were smooth, uninjured. If I had been weaker, if I had stayed in my room that night instead of going down for water, my life would have been entirely rewritten by people who viewed me as nothing more than a stepping stone. Send it, I said. My girl, Maya said, her fingers already clicking against her keyboard. Consider it delivered. By the way, how's the city? Is it everything we dreamed of when we were eating $5 ramen in the library? It's cold, I said, looking out at the foggy skyline. But it's real. Every step I take here is mine. I don't have to carry anyone else. Good, Maya said softly. You've been carrying them since we were freshmen. Emma. It's time to see how fast you can run when you're not dragging 3 corpses behind you. On Friday afternoon, the trust and safety team held their weekly all-hands meeting. The third-floor kitchen was filled with the smell of catered Thai food and the hum of 30 engineers, product managers, and data scientists talking about latency, user retention, and platform integrity. I stood in the corner, a plate of pad CEW in one hand, watching the dynamics of the team. Marcus walked up to the small stage at the front of the room, a microphone in his hand. All right, team, quiet down, he said, tapping the mic. We've got a couple of updates before we head into the weekend. First, the onboarding team has successfully closed the merchant verification loop that was causing the duplicate account exploit. We've cut down synthetic identity registration by 14% in the last 48 hours. The room clapped. Marcus nodded, then looked toward my corner. Second, I want to introduce our newest associate product manager. She's starting her official rotation on Monday, but she's been in the office all week, helping us audit our trust verification systems. Everyone, welcome Emma Walsh. 30 faces turned toward me. Some nodded, some smiled, some clapped. It wasn't an emotional family gathering, it was a professional acknowledgement. It was clean. It was based entirely on what I had done, not who I was supposed to be. Emma, a voice beside me said. I turned to see a senior product manager named Dave, a man with a graying beard and a lanyard covered in developer conference pins. Marcus told me about your case study, Dave said, taking a sip of his sparkling water. The multi-tiered escrow delay. We've been trying to implement something similar for our peer-to-peer marketplace in Europe, but we keep running into local regulatory hurdles regarding holding user funds. Have you thought about how your model would handle European banking compliance? Actually, yes, I said, my mind immediately shifting gears. If you split the escrow into a dual token verification system, you aren't technically holding the fiat currency in a single deposit account. You're holding a temporary transaction ledger entry that doesn't trigger the same deposit taking definitions under EU law. Dave stopped, looking at me with a mix of surprise and genuine interest. A ledger-based temporary entry? Do you have that mapped out? I have the flow diagram on my laptop, I said. I can show you after the meeting. Do that, Dave said, nodding. We've been arguing about this for 3 months. If your logic works, we might have to fast-track your first project. As he walked away to grab another spring roll, I felt a strange, warm sensation in my chest. It wasn't the relief of escaping a trap. It was the thrill of competence. I belonged here. I wasn't here because I was the smart one who had to carry the weak. I was here because my mind was a sharp, functional tool that could build things that mattered. While I was building a new life in San Francisco, the old one in Portland was imploding. On Saturday evening, Maya sent me a series of screenshots from her local social media feeds. The first was a post from Chloe's Instagram. The picture was of her sitting on a bench overlooking a gray, foggy mountain trail, likely Colorado. The caption read, sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones who leave you behind when the road gets steep. Blessed to have those who stay. But the comments tell a different story. Our university student community was small, and gossip among the computer science and product design seniors traveled fast. Underneath Chloe's post, several of our classmates had left comments that weren't so blessed. At Jake_dev, heard your capstone is under review for academic integrity. Is it true you copied Walsh's whole repo? At Sarah_codes, wait, did you really try to steal her job offer? That's wild. The post was deleted 10 minutes later, but the damage was done. In the tech community, reputation is a currency that is very hard to earn and incredibly easy to burn. Once the word plagiarism attaches to a candidate's name, their resume doesn't even make it past the initial automated screening filters. Then came the email from Ryan. This one was different from his first. The soft, apologetic tone was gone, replaced by the raw panic of a man who realized his own ship was sinking. Subject, what did you tell your university? Asterisk Emma, you're taking this too far. Chloe just got an official notice from the Academic Standards Board. They are conducting a full audit of her coursework for the last 2 years. They told her she might have her graduation status revoked. She's hysterical. She's been locked in her room for 24 hours. And now my company's HR department is asking me about a reputational risk assessment. Someone sent them an anonymous tip about the trail incident, claiming I was involved in an attempt to cause physical harm to a fellow classmate to manipulate an employment pipeline. Did you do this? Did you send that to my employer? You're ruining my life, Emma. I worked my ass off to get my spot at that firm. I had nothing to do with Chloe's academic stuff. I was just trying to keep the peace. You need to fix this. Call them. Tell them it was a personal dispute that has nothing to do with work. If I lose my job because of your drama, I swear to God, Emma, asterisk. I didn't finish reading the email. I didn't need to. The panic in his words was the sound of a man who had finally been forced to look at the bill for his own choices. He had sat in that kitchen, whispering in his low, hesitant voice, asking if they really had to hurt her. If I found out, not because he cared about my physical safety, but because he was afraid of the consequences. He had known what they were doing was wrong, and he had chosen to be the driver of the getaway car anyway. I forwarded his email to Hearthline's legal team, adding it to the existing case file. Then, I forwarded it to the Portland Police Department's non-emergency tip line, referencing the original trail incident report I had filed before leaving. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt like a database administrator cleaning out corrupted rows from a system database. If you let the bad data remain, the entire system eventually crashes. On Sunday morning, the fog in San Francisco didn't rise. It stayed low, clinging to the pavement like a wet coat. I was sitting in a small coffee shop near my apartment, my laptop open, reviewing the onboarding documents for Monday. My coffee had grown cold, but I hadn't noticed. A shadow fell over my table. Emma. I looked up. My mother was standing there. She was wearing her travel cardigan, her face pale and lined with exhaustion. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she carried a cheap, battered suitcase that I recognized, the one we had used for family road trips when I was a child. She looked small in the high-ceilinged, industrial coffee shop, surrounded by young people with laptops and expensive headphones. I didn't jump up. I didn't gasp. I just looked at her. Mom, I said. How did you find me? Maya, she said, her voice trembling as she sat down in the metal chair opposite me without asking. I went to your apartment in Portland. Maya was. They're packing your things. She wouldn't give me your address, but she told me which coffee shop you always work at when you're stressed. She said if I wanted to see you, I had to come here and look you in the eyes. I made a mental note to buy Maya a very expensive bottle of wine. She knew me. Well, she knew I needed to finish this, face to face, on my own terms. Why are you here, Mom? I asked. My mother reached across the table, her hand shaking as she tried to grasp mine. I pulled my hand back, resting it on my laptop. Her fingers hovered in the empty air for a second before dropping onto the wood. Emma, please, she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. You have to stop this. You have to tell them to stop. Tell who to stop. The school. The company. Chloe's life is over, Emma. She's been stripped of her teaching assistant position. The university is going to expel her before graduation. She won't have a degree. She won't have a job. She has nothing. She chose to steal my work, Mom, I said, my voice quiet, even. She chose to plan a fall that would have broken my bones. She did that. I didn't. She was desperate, my mother cried, her voice cracking, drawing a sharp look from the barista behind the counter. She felt so left behind. You've always been the strong one. You've always had everything. I carried you through the rain when you were 7, Emma. I gave you everything I could. Why can't you give her this one thing? I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her clearly. She wasn't a monster. She was just a weak, frightened woman who had survived her own life by giving away what wasn't hers to give. She had taken my strength, my intelligence, my labor, and used it to buy the affection of a girl who made her feel needed. She had traded my future to buy herself a daughter who would never leave her, a daughter who would always be weak enough to need her. When I was 7, Mom, I said softly, you carried me through the rain because I was your daughter. But somewhere along the line, you decided that my job was to carry you. And Chloe. And Ryan. That's what family does, she wept. We help each other. No, I said. Family doesn't plan to break your legs so they can take your place. Family doesn't stand in a kitchen and whisper about how much you can afford to lose because you're stubborn enough to want a life of your own. My mother's face twisted into an expression of raw, ugly resentment. You think you're so high and mighty now. You think because you got this fancy job in this expensive city, you don't need us anymore. You're cold, Emma. You've always been cold. Just like your father. The mention of my father, the man who had walked out on us when I was 5, the man whose name was a swear word in our house, didn't hurt the way she wanted it to. It was just another old tool from her drawer, blunt and rusted from overuse. Maybe I am cold, I said, closing my laptop with a soft, decisive click. But I'm also whole. My bones are unbroken, Mom. And I'm going to keep them that way. I stood up, putting my laptop into my backpack. Emma, please, she said, her voice dropping into a desperate, childlike plea. Where am I supposed to go? I spent my last savings on the ticket here. I don't know anyone in this city. I looked down at her. The beige cardigan was pilling at the elbows. She looked so small. I reached into my pocket, pulled out $100 bill, one of the few I had set aside for my relocation stipend, and laid it on the table. This is for a cab back to the airport, I said. And a ticket home. Don't call me again, Mom. If you do, I'll have Hearthline's legal team include your messages in the harassment file they're building for the university. She didn't touch the money. She just stared at it, her tears falling onto the dry wood of the table. I turned around and walked out of the coffee shop. The San Francisco air was cold, but when it hit my face, it felt clean. I didn't look back. I walked down the street, my boots making a firm, rhythmic sound against the concrete. The next morning, the sun finally broke through the marine layer. I stood in the elevator of Hearthline Labs, my official employee badge hanging from a black lanyard around my neck. It didn't say visitor or contractor. It said Emma Walsh, Associate Product Manager, Trust and Safety. When the doors opened on the third floor, the office was already humming with activity. Engineers were standing in small groups near the whiteboards, coffee mugs in hand, discussing the week's sprint goals. I walked over to my desk, a clean, white surface with a new dual monitor setup, a small potted succulent Maya had ordered to be delivered to the office, and a notebook with my name printed on the cover. Marcus was already at his desk, his sleeves rolled up, typing furiously. He looked up as I sat down. Emma, he said. Ready? Ready, I said, opening my laptop. Good. Legal finished their review of the Bennett file this morning. The university has officially suspended her pending a formal academic tribunal. Her capstone advisor pulled his recommendation letter. She won't be entering the recruiting pipeline again anytime soon. He paused, looking at me for a beat. And the other one? The boyfriend? He's being investigated by his own firm, I said, my voice calm. I sent over the documentation. Whatever happens to him, he built it himself. Marcus nodded once, a brief, professional acknowledgement of a problem. Successfully mitigated. Excellent. Now, let's look at the Europe project. Dave said you had an elegant solution for the escrow ledger logic. I want you to present it to the VP of Trust at 2 o'clock. He turned back to his screen, his fingers resuming their rapid dance across the keyboard. I looked at my own screen. The inbox was clean. The systems were functional. The data was clear. I opened a blank document, labeled it Phase 1, Escrow Ledger Architecture, and began to write. My fingers did not tremble. They were steady, efficient, and entirely my own. The future wasn't something I had to share, or apologize for, or give away to keep the peace. It was a blank page, and I was the only one with the pen.